stay with our top story for a moment and the findings of the UNRWA report. We'll bring in Marwan Bishara. He's Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, joining us from London. Marwan, good to have you with us again. For you, what was the takeaway message from the report and the findings?
That UNRWA is an excellent UN agency. The very few things mentioned in the report that are worthy of recommendations must be made to any agency or, in fact, any ministry or any government in the world. It is the nature of institutions anywhere to be evaluated, to be reviewed, to be audited, and recommendations to be made. I think UNRWA has gained excellent credit out of this, despite the intentions of those who wanted to audit it in order to get bad reviews for the organization.
There's some reaction coming through. One notable one is from the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and he's put out a relatively short statement, Marwan, saying that the Secretary General accepts the recommendations contained in Ms. Colonna's report. To what extent do you think that the Secretary General here is walking a sort of diplomatic tightrope? Because on one hand, he wants the UNRWA to support Palestinians, but on the other hand, he wants to restore some of the funding cuts that have taken place recently.
That's a very good point, and I agree 100%. I think he is walking a tightrope, but he also would like to put the whole issue behind him. Because if you see, the whole point of raising the problem with the UNRWA credibility on the part of Israel and some of its backers is an exercise of deflection. Just when Israel became infamous for its slaughter in Gaza, including the killing of some 150 UNRWA staff by the beginning of January, that's when Israel started surfacing these rumors about some handful, if you will, of UNRWA staff, maybe 12 among 13,000, being implicated in somehow. We don't know, there's no evidence, in October 7. So the idea of deflection, I think now has basically failed, you could say, although the media continues to be consumed by accusations against UNRWA. I think the report could put an end, at least the beginning of an end, and we will wait for the second report to come out, whereby the Western backers of UNRWA have no excuse to unfreeze the funds and to continue to support this indispensable UN organization.
When it comes to these claims that Israel had put forward that there were Hamas members involved in the October 7th attack, this report was not looking into these claims, but what it did reveal is that Israel has yet to provide supporting evidence of its claims that there were members of Hamas involved in the October 7th attacks. Why do you think that Israel has still not provided such evidence?
Well, most probably because it doesn't have it. And because, as I said, the whole issue from its start was an issue of deflection, basically focusing on UNRWA instead of focusing on Israel's unraveling genocide in plain sight. It's worth remembering that probably the most important eyewitness, aside from some of our and other independent journalists, is UNRWA. There is no better eyewitness than a UN agency with thousands upon thousands of employees being there in the midst of war. I think they were the primary eyewitness against what was happening to their schools, their students, their educational and other institutions. And so it was the intent of Israel to basically plant the seed of doubt about UNRWA so that UNRWA couldn't be a credible witness to what is happening. The second important thing about this is that none of it started even on October 7th. If you remember, Doreen, it was Israel and the infamous Jared Kushner in the Trump administration that tried to bury UNRWA, freezing its funds and basically insulting or doing everything possible to end its services, because ending UNRWA is meant to end the Palestinian refugee question. And this remains to be the case today. An attempt at undermining UNRWA undermine the refugees and their rights, including their inalienable rights for return.
Will
Because after all, they were displaced in a time of war.
Will this report, Marwan, make a difference in terms of restoring that funding? We know that in the US, Congress has passed a bill, meaning there is no funding for UNRWA until 2025. And in the UK, the ruling Conservatives, obviously, they have a somewhat significant pro-Israeli lobby. So will this report change their minds?
But this is the thing, right? I mean, it is the reality of life that some of the main backers of UNRWA are the main backers of Israel. And to cleanse some of their sins in their support of Israel, its apartheid and its occupation, its oppression, is by the crumbs of the table that are set to the Palestinians. I think the answer here should be that they should be ashamed of themselves and they should restore it one way or another. Biden maybe, I don't know exactly. He could have executive authority to do something about that. Same thing here in Europe. But I think more importantly, Doreen, I think those who have been outspoken at the United Nations in favor of Palestinian rights, like Russia, like China, like other countries who have been quite bombastic in their support, they should step up. Why should it be Germany and the United States and not other countries? We know, for example, that Saudi Arabia is probably the third or the fourth largest contributor. I think some other countries like China needs to step up and take up their international responsibilities. They need to walk their talk. If Western countries don't, then they should step in and be the champions of human rights in the Middle East.
Okay, Marwan Bishara, thank you so much for joining us from London.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.